Hi, it's your star goddess. It is Conspiracy Monday once again, and this topic for today was given to me by one of my viewers. I'm so sorry I did not have time to go back and find your name in the comments, but you know who you are. If you want to leave a little comment below saying, hey, I suggested the topic, that's perfectly fine. But thank you so much for suggesting this topic. I did a little research on the Mandela effect. Now, if you've never heard of the Mandela effect, it is sort of like a glitch in the matrix. People have certain memories and that things happened, and then other people have memories that didn't happen the same way. There's a few examples. For one, what it's named after, the Mandela effect. A lot of people believed that Mandela actually died while he was in prison in the 1980s. They vividly remember seeing the funeral, the flowers, the hearse, and all that stuff on the news. They vividly remember him dying in the 1980s. Now, another group of people say, oh, he just died in 2013. Okay, he just died. He died recently, okay? And, you know, so these people have vivid memories, and there are large groups of people that have the exact same memory. So, another example is something silly. It's a child's book. Okay, if you grew up and you had little children books called the Berintein Bears, I grew up with the Berintein Bears with, you know, the spelling with the E in it. A lot of people say, oh no, it's Berintein, like A-I-N. No, for me it was Berintein, and it was spelled with the E-I in the last part of Berintein, okay? I vividly remember, because I did book reports on these books. I wrote it out. It was my favorite book series when I was a child. Okay? I bought my kids a couple of books from Berintein Bears, and I just saw the book 3 days ago on my table. Okay? Now it's nowhere to be found. I cannot find that book. It, like, you know, mysteriously just disappeared, and I just cannot find it to save my life. And I searched for it all last night, can't find it. So I go online and I Google Berintein Bears, and it keeps coming up Berintein Bears. I look on eBay for old vintage books and, you know, paraphernalia and, you know, stuff that they used to sell, like lunch boxes and stuff like that. And it all says Berintein. It's like someone went back in time and actually changed the spelling of these people's name. And I'm like, okay, whatever. You know, I can deal with that. I'm not going to drive myself crazy saying, oh, I vividly remember, as well as a large group of people. So basically what this is caused from, a lot of people say, well, what happened? Why are people having separate memories? Well, a couple years ago, they started experimenting with CERN, which is that machine that they have that they're trying to figure out the God particle and, you know, smash atoms together and all that good stuff. And people were afraid what was going to happen. You know, are they going to create tiny black holes or rifts in the universe, or a parallel universe? Or will the universe, or will the dimensions overlap? You know, and it seems like just minor things have changed due to whatever happened. Like, instead of, a lot of people remember Interview with the Vampire, and a lot of people will say, no, it's Interview with a Vampire. Just little things like movie titles will change on you. Also, if you remember the Disney movie Snow White back in the old days, when the evil queen looked in her mirror, she said, mirror, mirror on the wall. I distinctly remember that. Now, if you go back and look at that movie, the exact same movie, it's magic mirror on the wall. So that's another one. Another example is Star Wars. You know, the scene where Darth Vader is fighting Luke, and he says, Luke, I am your father. A lot of people will say, no, he said, no, I am your father. So that's another one. You know, I distinctly remember Luke. They made t-shirts and all the good stuff, okay? I remember because I was watching it as a child, and it was Luke, I am your father, okay? And a lot of people will disagree, because basically what the whole thing is that the universe has, you know, overlapped another dimension. So in that dimension, it was no, I'm not, no, I'm your father. And in another dimension, it was Luke, I'm your father. And somehow these dimensions have crossed, and we ended up, you know, placed together. It kind of reminds me of that show, what you call it, The Leftovers, where like all these people disappeared, and you know, out of nowhere, it's like something happened, something major happened. And I really think that I can you know, safely say that it's probably because of CERN. Okay, even my daughter, she was born in she was born in 2007, and she distinctly remembers Berintein Bears as well. So it must have happened sometime after that day. I'm thinking it happened, I don't know when it happened, but it happened after my child was born, because she remembers Berintein Bears too. Okay. Another thing is, you know, a lot of people say, well, maybe our manifestations manifested us to, you know, another dimension to get what we want. Maybe our life in another dimension is exactly what we were manifesting in this dimension. So the easiest way, the most convenient way to get us what we want is to just go ahead and shift us to a different dimension where there's just slight changes. You know, are you going to mind that a book is spelled different? I mean, is that really going to affect your life in any way? Maybe for the better, you never know. And another thing about the Berintein Bears, like that name is, you know, a lot of people with the last name with Stein or Stain in it, it's like, you know, could be culturally connected to, you know, Jewish. And if they went back and changed time or something, like back in the old days when, you know, they were doing lots of profiling, and you know, back in the days when they were against Jews and like Hitler and the Holocaust and all that stuff, if they went back and changed something in there, it would make sense, because a lot of people before they came to the United States, they changed the spellings of their names to not have to endure certain, you know, stereotypes. So if they were to come as Stain instead of Stein, they might have gotten a little different treatment, or maybe their grandparents decided to change their name to protect themselves in a certain way. You don't know. That's the only thing I can come up with. But it's just the little things that make you think, you know, is time travel, you know, possible with technology now? Have they figured out a way? Have they gone back and changed something that changed little minute details about this existence? We don't know. But as far as I'm concerned, it's not a big deal, those small changes. Maybe they had to make small changes to save someone's life that would have devastated the economy. I don't know. I just don't know. But people are noticing. People say, hey, this ain't right. We remember this ain't right. Okay? If you're one of those people, they say if you remember Stain or Stein, you're from the E universe if you remember Stein. You're from the A universe if you remember Stain. And I have the DVD of Interview with the Vampire. I haven't looked at it in a long time. But, you know, a lot of times we don't pay close attention to these things. So it's easy to, like, if this is a computer program and you want it to make you know, a similar universe, and you had to make small changes that most people wouldn't really notice, and you had to pick and choose what you're going to change, and this was the only codes you could change, you know, it's understandable. A lot of people say, oh, this is like the Matrix and it's a glitch in the Matrix, and you can tell like all of this is you know, illusion, because it can be easily manipulated. So you know, a lot of people believe that now because of the Mandela effect. And the Mandela effect, it should be named something else, I think, because there were people that were having the same issue back in the 70s. I mean, someone sent me a video last night on Facebook. You know who you are. Thank you for sending that. This man in 1977 had the same issue. He said little minute things have changed, and I've noticed, and I distinctly remember this, and that. So he was like experiencing that too back in the 70s. So I really think either something is being manipulated or we're manipulating it without knowing. You know, a lot of people have suddenly gotten this knowledge on how to manifest and how to get the things you want. They've been studying, you know, alchemy, metaphysics, quantum physics, and you know, the mind is very powerful. So if enough people would manifest a certain thing, you know, a lot of times that can also have an effect on what we call the matrix. There's thousands of possibilities, millions of possibilities, millions of theories, but I have been affected by the Mandela effect. Okay, I have been affected because I distinctly remember certain things, and some of these things can be debunked, like perhaps someone didn't pay close enough attention in a movie, or, you know, whatever. But if you were like a movie buff and you memorized every line, and you did memorize Luke, I am your father, you're gonna know for sure that something ain't right. Okay, if your favorite book series was the Berintein Bears, and you did book reports on this, and you carried this book to sleep with you under your pillow, and you distinctly remember seeing it spelled a certain way, then yes, you're going to be for sure of yourself too. Okay, now a lot of people will try to say, oh no, you're crazy, you're crazy, but the people that really know what's going on, they're not going to push the issue. They're not going to say, no, it was that way, I promise. We don't care. It doesn't matter. The whole thing is that we know. Like, I know. We know something ain't right. Okay. So even if it's not right, it's still not wrong. You know what I mean? It's like there are so many ways that life can go and still work out. So I know. Who knows? What if it shortened your life? What if the changing of the spelling of that name shortened your life? Oh my gosh. Or what if it lengthened it? You know, are you gonna be thankful? We don't know. Little minute details can change everything. It's like a fabric in time. You take one string out, the whole pattern changes, you know. So I just wanted to do this quick video on that. There's like a lot of videos on YouTube about the Mandela effect. There's this one video, I don't know, well, there's a lot of videos that will give you more examples of the Mandela effect, so you can go and like kind of look through those and see what you find. You might find something that you relate to. You might not relate to my examples, but there might be an example that you will relate to. So it's very important to go do your own research. And you know, a lot of us are guilty of asking people a lot of questions and getting their answers, because their answers are not going to be the same as your answers. That's why I always encourage people to go and do their own research instead of asking people the answer. Okay, because my answer is different than yours, because obviously I'm from another parallel universe, just like a lot of other people seem to be as well. So you know, I'm just saying. But yes, it's very interesting, and it kind of makes you think and wonder, you know, what else has been changed. So yeah, I think in this universe my husband is a lot better than when it was in the last universe, because it's like, I'm not joking at all, y'all. I mean, I did do the binding spell on him, but either it worked too good, or we're just in another parallel universe where, you know, he does whatever I tell him to do. I don't know, but I'm not complaining at all. So yeah. So also, I think a lot of witches who do magic, you know, sometimes the spells that we use and our intent might just take us to another minute parallel universe with only subtle changes. And every time we do magic, perhaps we go deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole. Who knows? You know, and it doesn't bother me as long as I'm getting what I want, right? And a lot of people will say, well, that's strange, and they're really gonna sit there and think about this. But to me, you know, when you manipulate things, thoughts, intent, feelings, time, you know, breakups to makeups, give me back my man, you are changing things in the universe, you know. So here we are. There's a lot of people now at this time that are practicing magic, manifesting more than there has ever been. So maybe it has something to do with that, or it could be CERN, or it could be both. You never know. All right, I'll see you guys later. Please comment what you think in the comments. What do you feel is really happening Are you part of, you know, the A or the E universe? Do you remember Berinstein or Berinstein? Do you remember Luke, I am your father? Go and look at your old movies. Go on YouTube. Everything has been changed. If you go on eBay, all that stuff has been changed. And I'm not, it's crazy, okay? It's like someone went back in time and changed it. Or we just in a different parallel universe. Okay, thank y'all. I'll see y'all next video. Bye.